Zwift Classics and race one of a brand new series of one-day races. Today it is the London International for Women, and alongside me is none other than Olympic champion Danny Rowe. Danny, this is going to be great, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic stuff. We'll talk a little bit in a bit more detail about what is in store for the riders today, but without further ado, let's have a close look at the London Classic course, of course held in central London.
Zwift Classics London International, 6 laps out on the London course, 37.5 kilometers, and we are going to be hitting all of the iconic spots. Trafalgar Square we're looking at here as the riders will be heading into that for their first lap, and then on over to the Mall. That's where the lap as well as the finish banner is located. On over toward St. James Garden, and then on over toward the Whitehall for the only climb out on course. Then on over toward the Strand for the 1 kilometer to go banner. 6 laps, 37.5 kilometers. London International, Zwift Classics.
There we go, Danny. That was a little bit of a taster of a course we both know very, very well, but I think it's worth dwelling a little bit on this brand new series, isn't it? It's 3 one-day races for men, 3-day, one-day races for women as well. No overall classification, so everything is on the line. So it's going to have a really different feel than the KISS Super League we've had previously. Yeah, for sure. And I think we are in for some super exciting racing. It's going to be fast and furious tonight. You won't have anyone saving themselves. It will all be on the line for that win. Now, we do have intermediate sprints as well, which always affects the racing. On today's race, it's 6 laps. 38 Ks if my maths is right, but 5 intermediate sprints, which always sets the bit of a tone, although on this course we know it generally does end up in a bunch sprint, but still I think that will affect things to a degree. Yeah, for sure, and I think you'll have teams who have specific riders for those sprints, and then they'll be saving one rider for that overall victory at the finish. And of course throughout the series as well, there's going to be a lot of different courses, so there's going to be horses for courses as well. We've got teams of 5 riders, although some teams can have less, but a maximum of 5 riders. We had 4 riders in the KISS Super League, but I think tactically these races, because there's no overall, are going to be ridden, and as the title suggests, as one-day classics rather than like a stage race as we saw in the KISS Super League. Yeah, definitely, and I think teams will use that to their advantage. They can pick specific riders for the specific courses depending on their expertise, if they're a climber or a pure bunch sprinter, which we'll see, I think, for this race tonight. Yeah, definitely should be one for the sprinters today. Well, as we're talking about teams, let's have a look at some of the teams. I'm going to pick out one of my favourite teams on the road and on Zwift. That's Canyon SRAM. Always a lot of strength in depth. They've got Tanya Erath and Ella Harris, 2 previous winners of the Zwift Academy. And I'm going to pick as well Show Air 2020. Chloe Dygert unfortunately isn't riding, but they've got a team really strong in depth, very, very experienced riders on Zwift. What about you? What teams and riders are you looking out for today? So for the team, I'm going to go for Innovation Cycling. They have got Louise Hoback replacing Cassie Baldy tonight. And Louise won the overall KISS Super League, super strong rider. And then I'm going to back my team, Rowan King. Pressure's on. We have Eiley Gardner, who won the qualification for the UK Nationals, but unfortunately couldn't race the Nationals themselves. So I think she'll be super strong tonight as well. A little bit of an outsider from me, riding for Team Draft, is Ione Johnson. She got through from New Zealand. She's a very, very good sprinter, got through to the Zwift Academy final and actually won the Zwift race round the volcano as well. Lots and lots of exceptional riders here, but what we need to have a little bit of a closer look at now is the course. Not the course. Have a look at the course. Is the fact that the Zwift Academy, it's come around so quickly. The Zwift Academy is open for entries now. Of course, it starts on the 5th of August, but if you haven't heard of the Zwift Academy, this is a VT that gives you a bit more of an insight about what it's all about, and it's something very, very special indeed, and close to my heart, I must confess. This is the Zwift Academy. Take us there, come on. at the Zwift Academy 2019. Make sure you sign up now. You can end up as a pro in 2020. Now, what we can't talk about as we head into the first race is power-ups. Now, power-ups are a really important component part of whether you ride on Zwift for leisure or racing, but we've got two brand new power-ups to juggle with. One's a bit of an old friend, the Everything Burrito. That's back in the fold, but the one that excites me the most, because I like gaming, and it looks a little bit like the Pac-Man logo, is the cloak. I'm going to call it the cloak. It's invisibility, where it can be invisible for 10 seconds. But if you're wondering what a power-up's all about, here's a video to explain all the 6 power-ups in a little bit more detail, because they are so important, especially when racing on Zwift, and can give you that extra little edge that you need that could make all the difference.
Passing any corsage triggers a random power-up. There are 5 different power-ups, each with their own properties. Power-ups activated by hitting the spacebar on a PC or Mac, or the button on Zwift Companion. The lightweight or feather power-up removes 9 kilos of rider weight for 30 seconds. It counts most on the hills, where racers will use it to attack and gap their rivals. They have to work extra hard to counter if they don't have the feather. The Aero Boost power-up, signified by a time trial helmet, improves rider aerodynamics for 15 seconds. Cutting drag by 25%, it's a favourite with racers because of the big speed boost. Racers often save this power-up for the final sprint. The Draft Boost works only when you are drafting, when it doubles the effect for 30 seconds, like sitting behind a white van. Best used on flats and descents, it can provide a short rest for racers to recover. Recently returning to the game, the Breakaway Burrito makes you undraftable for 10 seconds, making breakaways easier as opponents have to dig deeper to follow. It'll be used tactically to put hurt on your rivals. This is the newest of Zwift's power-ups. Activate it and you simply vanish, becoming invisible to opponents for 10 seconds. Racers may use this to mask an attack, or perhaps sow confusion in a sprint.
Well, Danny, it's not too long now before the first inaugural Zwift Classic. The riders have been in the pens for the last 15 minutes because on this course in particular, very important that you're warmed up and ready to go full gas from the off. But the course itself, as you mentioned earlier on in the show, it's a course you've ridden in the real world and on Zwift. So what are your thoughts on today's race? How do you think it's going to pan out?
Well, like you said, it's definitely going to be a fast and furious race tonight, as it was when I raced it both on the road and on Zwift. We saw a bunch sprint in both races. So, yeah, my pick tonight is for a bunch sprint. But I'm hoping we'll see a few breakaways along the way, potentially being brought back. But it will be a really fast average speed. And those riders are going to have to hold a high average and be able to produce a really high max power for that final sprint. I
tend to agree with you. But, again, you never know. There's always a first. We saw that in the KISS Super League. Some of the courses that traditionally end up in a bunch sprint, somebody did break away. So that's the thing about racing, is that you just never know. But one thing that's for certain, this is going to be very exciting indeed. I cannot wait. It's time to throw to Nathan. You're going to join him virtually in the commentary booth, so I'll let you go in just a couple of seconds' time. But for now, I can take a deep breath and hand over to our commentator, Nathan Guerra.
Thanks a lot, Matt. And yep, we are out on the London course, London Classic course out here for that 37.5 kilometers. We've got 48 women lined up and ready to absolutely demolish this course. At least 48 in the pen, 6 laps total. We got a sprint competition on hand here. I think that's going to cause things to break up a little bit here and there as the riders compete for that. You'll most likely start seeing some counterattacks out there off of those sprints. So, the bunch prediction there, the peloton all coming together for that bunch sprint. We'll have to see how that works out, because there is the reality that we could see some strong counterattacks, and some of these riders are not going to be looking for that bunch sprint at all and look to take advantage. We've got 5 seconds to go here. The usual start we're going to see here, hot off the start line here, and right from the get-go, it's orange numbers as usual, as we do see Jarhead from Vision here making it, Kate Robinson here, now Mary Wilkinson from Turbo Squad here, newer team that's out out on Zwift recently. Greg Leal's been putting that together here and inviting left and right off of the back of some of the biggest competitions we've ever seen, the KISS Super League, and then as well as the UK National Championships. We saw him recruiting for that team. Mary Wilkinson, second overall at that UK National Championships that was live in London. We're looking at her for a moment there. Now we are looking at, it looks like, Wilsini Van Eyck here. Now the team number 27 here, making her way through the pack here, 312 watts, currently in 35th place. Unfamiliar with the sites on screen here, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, whenever you do see those wattages there, that is the rider we currently have selected. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you do see C. Watts riding for race 3R. On the right-hand side is her watts per kilogram right underneath her name, as well as her country flag. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see the watts and the heart rate, as well as how much distance left to the finish line. We're on the lead-in here at this point for the race, so they will be making their way on over to the classic course for the laps. It is pretty calm at this point. Nobody really got anywhere at this point with the initial attack, so it does look like the smarts are in the pack. A lot of people have done their homework, and with so much on the line, it's interesting. We thought perhaps we would see a situation where riders would try and take off and break things apart right away, but instead, because of the nature of this course, being a course that's flatter, being a course that most likely is going to come down to some sprint competitions with real prizes on the line, as well as most likely a peloton with a bunch sprint, people are saving up for the serious attacks. Cool little thing you can see on the right-hand side of the screen as well with the riders nearby. The little badges next to the names, those are the pro riders, at least the ones that are jerseys with pro inside of it. Then the other ones are the verified badges. Some of those are going to be pro riders. Others are going to be maybe community members that have been verified as well, as that is the real name in game. You can also see a little badge there from Ella Harris, actually, on the screen. That is the Zwift Academy finalist badge, or someone who has participated in the Zwift Academy. Obviously, Ella Harris winning the 2018 Zwift Academy out there on course right now. The Kiwi hammering away here. 1.8 kilometers into the race so far. We've got 37.1 kilometers to go. And I believe Danny is with us now in the commentary booth. Looks like it's been pretty fast and furious so far, Danny. And what are you thinking of this start?
Yeah, it's always fast and furious on this course. I've raced it both on the road and on Zwift, and you have to be warmed up properly. It's always fast and furious. As you can see, there's high powers from the start, and you have to be there at the front. If you end up getting gapped at the start, you have got to be working so hard then to get back into that draft and into the pack. So it's all about positioning, and you can see the same names at the front: Mary Wilkinson, Vicky Whitelaw, Louise Hoback, and they're always there or thereabouts fighting for that victory already at the front.
Yeah, the BRT Hellcats here now. You do see Hamilton now. It looks like the Kiwi making her way toward the front end of the pack here. Some interesting community teams have been invited. A little bit different than we saw in the KISS Super League, actually. Some teams that did not get their chance to shine, so it'll be interesting to see how they end up showing up against some of the pros out here. Speaking of some of the riders out here in this race, U.S. National Champion Angela Pitzer's out there for Team Draft. The British Cycling National Champ Rosamund Bradbury's out there as well for Turbo Squad, one of the newer teams out on course that did come out of Team Draft. The Danish national champion, obviously, with Louise Hubach there out there for the Zwift Danish national champion for innovation. Former UCI World Individual Pursuit champion Rebecca Wyzak is out there as well for the Turbo Squad. And I think you're familiar, perhaps, with that rider as well, Danny, racing, I would believe, out in real life against her.
Yes, I am, and she's actually one of my picks for today. She's an incredibly strong rider. She was world champion twice in the individual pursuit, and then did a lot of team pursuiting alongside myself, obviously for Australia, which were our biggest rivals. But yeah, she's done a lot of Zwifting lately. I've actually been riding with her on Zwift, and she's still super strong, and she's got a great sprint. So I think for her, this could be a great night on this course.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up playing out with the, that's the story here a lot of times, is the pro, experience versus, the Zwift experience of the community versus the pure power. We are also getting a lot of talent identification, as you know, that we're seeing out here as well with Zwift. That's one of the cool things. We did see the Zwift Academy promo that just released for the sign-up launch for Zwift Academy. And so, you know, this reality of finding people in the community that have these abilities and the want to race at such a high level. It's pretty cool to see him mix it up out here. Now, we are seeing Team Vixen here now, as you can see in the orange kit at the front here, with Jarhead now coming out of Sweden. 6.6 watts per kilogram, absolutely demolishing this right now here. And this is already breaking things apart. A little bit of gap here, Danny, and this could be a little bit of contention and maybe some people caught off guard.
Yeah, for sure. You're already seeing small gaps, and like you say, you have to be on top. You need to be at the front to be able to react straight away to these kind of moves. Because if you're out of that draft, you've got to be putting out so much more power to then close the gap. And early on in the race, that is going to be really, really tough. That's going to put you into the red, and it will mean it will be harder to recover. So as you can see, all these riders are trying to close these gaps, and you can see it really is stringing out now, and there are small gaps. And if the riders work together at the front, this could be where a potential breakaway happens. So this is really exciting to see on this course, and not something that we actually saw much of in the KISS Super League on the course. So yeah, it's really exciting start to this race so far.
Yeah, already it looks like amongst the riders here, 37, according to the back-end stats here, have made the lead group. A couple have fallen off early on here. We are heading into the first sprint. Every time they do go underneath the lap finish banner, except for the final time through, will be awarding sprint points. So every single time for the sprint competition, the points were rewarded 5 for first, 3 for second, 2 for third across the line, and 1 point for fourth across the line. And so they're definitely going to be looking for this, as there's real prizes on the line here for this sprint competition. So the first time through, sprint competition is coming up here, and we're going to see it with about less than a half a K to go, 500 meters here. Ellen Tarquino here from Vision Cycling here, making her way to the front and certainly in fifth place. Not looking to be the lead-out train, though. Now, Tanya Erath, we saw her in the KISS Super League, definitely trying to take down a few of these sprints. Will Tanya now open anything up? Nothing yet. It looks like, are they going to just roll across the line? Nobody seems serious. Here comes Erath now. Orange numbers popping here. 10 watts per kilogram coming from the Zwift Academy winner here. Tanya Erath going to the line. Will she be able to take it out here? And it looks like not going to be. Oh, there she goes. It looks like it's going to be happening here for Erath as she just walks away with this one. Tanya Erath with 2 seconds ahead of the entirety of the pack at that point. The cameras were a little bit off there for a second here, but on my back end feed, I did see Erath definitely first one across the line. We'll have to wait for the sprint competition official results for the top 4, as it is rewarding points to the top 4. 1180 there for the time, it looks like, across the line. That was a solid 0.3 seconds ahead of all of the rest of the pack, it looks like here. Tanya Erath followed up by Marlene Jarhead for Vixen. Looks like Michelle Bennett there for third, and then Helen McKay for fourth. That's the points for the sprint competition currently. That's going to change things up a little bit here. Danny, I think, you know, the reality is that this could set up for a solid counterattack to try and get away rather than a bunch sprint at the end.
Yeah, it does, and you have to be really on guard after these sprints on the road and in Zwift. It was always a really exciting but stressful part of the bike race, because if you were going for that sprint, you couldn't just relax straight away. You had to be watching all the time for any counter-attacks. And I personally, in Ride London, was the one going for the sprints. I wasn't going for the overall. That was Marianne Voss's job. And I think you'll see similar in the teams tonight. I think you'll have riders specifically going for the sprint points, and then one rider who is saved for that overall finish.
Yeah, so the team is going to, you know, it'll be with 5 available for the slots out there, you're going to have most likely a GC contender and then a sprint contender, which is a pretty cool setup, actually. Pretty cool setup to have out here for the races, you know. We are being told that there is an update on the power-ups. There are no XP power-ups actually in the event here today, so it's only going to be the arrow, the feather, the van, the burrito, and the cloak. All are equally likely at a 20% to happen out there on the course. Here we got a little bit of replay for the sprint now, as it does look like here was the calm before the storm. And then we had an invisibility power-up. I missed that. There it was. Tanya Areth walked away with this with a power-up, actually, from the invisibility. That's the first time that we've actually seen it used so tactfully. And Areth grabbed that few seconds, and nobody even saw it happen. There's the gamification as Areth just sneaks. It's almost like attacking from the back of the pack. You know, when you take that draft in, Danny, to, you know, you roll it into a sprint and nobody even sees you coming. It's almost kind of the real life comparison, I would think.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing and timed to perfection. And that is exactly what we're talking about us in terms of how to use these power-ups and how to race on Zwift. You have to know how to race. She got the perfect power-up there and the perfect timing. She had that gap before anyone could even see her, and that was really amazing to see. And I think that will be used for the finish as well. Normally the aero boost is the one that you use for the final sprint, giving you about 25% less kind of drag into the aerodynamics. But yeah, that invisibility one seems to be an incredible one to use for getting away without anyone seeing you.
The invisibility power-up now, is it going to be the new sprint power-up? You know, we've had the arrow power-up over and over and over again being the one to go for. It'll be interesting, from our point of view, we'll be able to see what is going on with the sprint, but it causes a little bit of mayhem, I think, amongst the riders for those sprint situations. We'll see if that is going to be a race decider. A lot of times in racing, it's, once you get into a sprint or once you've put all of the chips on the table, you just go all in and you don't stop giving everything you got. And so it might even have a little bit more encouragement, because if you have that visual feedback sometimes, Danny, that you think you've got it already, you might not always give everything you possibly got. But if there could be an invisible rider, that might be a totally different situation for that. So it looks like we're going to have a VT here for a second, though, that we're going to go to for just a second for an explanation about some more stuff on Zwift.
This is the newest of Zwift's power-ups. Activate it and you simply vanish, becoming invisible to opponents for 10 seconds. Racers may use this to mask an attack or perhaps sow confusion in a sprint.
Power-up, that's what it's all about. It is a new power-up out on Zwift. 10 seconds. No idea where the rider is at anymore. So pretty cool new power-up. Let us know what you think about it in chat. We'd love to hear from you. The chat is definitely be watched, and I'm trying to keep an eye on it as well. A little bit of attack here now, whereas we heading through Whitehall and back on over toward the Strand here. Danny Lukey from Show Air now, it looks like, as well as Mary Wilkinson on her wheel. Not too many have fallen off, and it looks like your predictions are coming true so far, as things are fairly all together with still about, it looks like, 34 riders in and amongst the pack, Danny.
Yeah, but there has been a lot of attrition already in this race after only one sprint. So it just shows that you have to be able to sustain that high power. You're seeing riders pushing over 300 watts, even in the bunch here. As you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, the rider we're looking at now is in the middle of the bunch and is still, as I said, up to 300 watts. So you really have to be on top form for this race. And it's great to see some of our Rowan King riders in there. Eiley Gardner, actually, who won the qualification for the UK Nationals, but unfortunately couldn't make the National Championship. So I'm really interested in how she goes tonight. She's actually more of a climber, so this round might not suit her perfectly, but she's super strong, and I think she'll be up there for sure.
We are getting information here now. KISS Super League stage champion Britt Mason draft has a technical difficulty off the line, so she is out of the race. That really changes things up a little bit. I think she was one of the pre-race favorites, and Britt Mason, always a solid sprinter. We also saw her, last year as well in one of the finals, I believe for the North America Championships live finals. That was in Long Beach. Britt Mason, one of the strongest sprinters we know of from the community teams, solid in real life mountain biker as well, and not having her in the race is going to open up a few doors for some of the other riders perhaps, but also takes one of the riders out of contention for Team Draft. If we take a look, though, for Team Draft, who is in the race still, Angela Pitzer, one of the only rider I think that's left here for Team Draft. Helen McKay's out there as well, so we'll have to wait and see how this ends up playing out for Draft, as they do not have too many bodies left in this race here. We are heading into the sprint, though, again here. Here comes the aero power-ups. Tanya Areth obviously looking to take this down again. Another invisibility power-up off the front here as McKay from Turbo tries to walk away with this, but Areth comes across at 15 watts per kilogram, it looks like here. Will Areth hold on out of Germany, and almost at the line, John had almost nips it, but it looks like Areth, I believe, able to hold on. We'll have to wait and see for the official results here, but she's definitely after those prizes out there today that will be rewarded at the end because of that. We are now making our way toward the front here, but Tanya Areth with another 5 points. Marlene Jarhead there again with 3. Helen McKay with 2, and then it is going to be Debbie Stockley for race 3R with 1 point getting her name onto the sprint leaderboard here. So Tanya Areth here, 10 points in total. Marlene Jarhead there with 6, sitting in second solidly here. Helen McKay, 3 points, and fourth is certain with Michelle Bennett, and then Debbie Stockley with that 1 point. That's your top 5 in the sprint points. Still plenty of opportunity for the riders here to try and make something happen in the sprint competition, but Tanya Areth obviously really solidify herself there at the front of that, though. But it's going to be a total of 6 sprints because there was one on the lead-in. There's a lot of opportunity here. We're looking at a ton of points on the line. She's going to have to have a lot of continuance here with these efforts here. She's burning a lot of matches, Danny.
She is indeed. So I don't know what bearing that will have on her for the final. Is she going to go for all of the sprints? Is she picking specific sprints? Obviously, she's walked away with the first 2 sprints, but she might have a game plan. It depends kind of how this race is panning out, and you're seeing she's definitely going to go for that sprint, but I wonder if she will go for the overall. She is a super sprinter. She had an amazing season so far with the Canyon SRAM team on the road, and she is a very keen Zwifter. She knows how to race Zwift, and she's obviously practiced with that invisibility power up, using it to perfection. But you saw there in the second sprint, you had a few others who had cottoned onto that power up and were very close, a lot closer than in the first sprint. So it's getting really exciting out there today, and it's so attritional. This group really has whittled down now, and you're only seeing about 35 riders left in this group at the front.
Yeah, we are seeing a few fall off at this point. Charlotte back for Turbos off the back here. Jennifer Krieger for Vixen. Fox out there as well. Jessica Hamilton for the BRT team off the back, it looks like, as well as Amy Payne. Canyon SRAM has fallen off a little bit here too, it looks like, with Christine Raffel. So it looks like it's been a difficult race so far. Back in with the replay here, we are seeing McKay from Turbo trying to walk away from it, and that was the replay for just a moment. Looks like we're back in with the live shots here. We'll see if we can get that going again in just a moment. But now looking here, it is going to be Shayna Powell here for Show Air. Hammering away out of the US of A, and then Clevenger here. It looks like the Show Air team has been very quiet so far. I haven't seen a whole lot of attacks just yet. I have a feeling, I was having a conversation yesterday with their director sportif a little bit about how, we'll get back into that in just a second, because we're back in the replay here, as it does look like Vixen here is attacking off the front, but McKay now with the power-up, with the invisibility power-up, was able to sneak away a little bit, but Areth caught it just in time and was able to come over the top there. So what a solid sprint. But Show Air, not super active so far. I think they're learning a little bit about the education of Zwift racing, Danny.
Yeah, exactly, and you really do need to learn how to race on Zwift, and they are going to be saving it all for that final. I think as well with the sprints every lap, it gives them the opportunity to test how they work, to test which power-ups to use, where they need to be, when they need to launch their sprint, because it is all about timing, as it is on the road. So to be able to practice that on a lapped course where they have 5 chances before that final sprint, it is really beneficial. So for them, I think they'll be kind of watching, waiting to launch their kind of final for the victory overall.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how that plays out for the tactics there for each lap with that sprint. It's been definitely already a place where a lot of matches have been burned. We saw the power-ups involved a lot in the sprint so far. We want to make sure everybody understands exactly what's going on with them. We saw the invisibility power-up explainer. The burrito power-up was recently added back into the game. Let's check out what that's all about.
Recently returning to the game, the Breakaway burrito makes you undraftable for 10 seconds, making breakaways easier as opponents have to dig deeper to follow. It'll be used tactically to put hurt on your rivals.
And so the burrito power-up, the breakaway burrito, unable to be drafted momentarily, and because that is, I think, a new tactical gamification that we are seeing out here. Is we are seeing a lot of the riders using it to try and get little breakaways in here. Now, and you can see those breakaway burritos as well as the arrow power-up. We're seeing a drafting power-up. You can see exactly what power-up the riders are using as they do head through through Trafalgar Square after they did climb through the Whitehall. We are seeing Samara Shepard. She won yesterday in the SRAM Ascended Series for the land down under there. Samara Shepard walked away with a 1-minute gap, but it was a climber's course. This is not a climber's course. If someone like Samara Shepard, Danny, wants to get away, she's going to have to break away and do a solo TT, I would think, because this is a sprinter section.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's all about using kind of the courses to your advantage, and you have to launch the attack to try and get away if you know you can't sprint at the end. But as you can see, these powers are high and the race has whittled down. So for her, she might have to just pick her moment, potentially after a sprint. That's probably the best chance to get away and to have a break that sticks, and hope that potentially with the invisibility power up you can get away and hold that gap. So I wouldn't say never for a breakaway to happen. I think it'll be really exciting. My pick is for a bunch sprint, but as you know, in bike racing you never know. And I think it's really interesting looking at Britt Mason's power for the KISS Super League on this course where she won. She averaged 238 watts as an average for an hour of racing, so you have to be on it. And you can see here Eiley Gardner, who is riding for my team, Rowan King. She's not a sprinter, and this is what she's trying to do. She just used an invisibility power up there to try and get away, but unfortunately this time it hasn't worked, and maybe she'll try again later on in the race. But she needs to hang on here. You can see she's going now towards the back, having used, you know, a big effort, so I'm hoping she'll be able to hang on and give it a go later in the race.
Yeah, it was a cheeky little move there. Almost made it off the front, and I didn't even notice that because she had disappeared for a second there. So now we do have another invisibility power-up being used very quickly, though, as we come into the third time for the sprint. Power-up's going to be used left and right here, but Tanya Areth getting the jump again on the rest of the pack. She's already got 1 second because of that invisibility power-up, it looked like, that she used just a moment ago. Up into 8.8 watts per kilogram, 620 watts, now 9 watts per kilogram. McKay now trying to come across, it looks like, at 10 watts per kilogram, but with 2 seconds and 100 meters to go, it's just too late, it looks like, and it's going to be Areth again, another 5 points, and that's going to be 15 now on the board for her. We'll have to wait and see how it works out behind Areth here at this point, but the Zwift Academy winner, you know, absolutely dominating the 2018 Zwift Academy winner here, getting that pro contract and out there riding for Canyon SRAM now, is walking away with the sprint competition here. And what is the story, though, behind the rest of Canyon SRAM, and what are they doing as far as their tactics go? Because they've got a few other, you know, riders up their sleeve here, I think, here to try and take down the overall win. Krista Rafael out there, Ella Harris, and Tanya Areth have shown up on the day. Are they still involved, though, is going to be the question, or is it all down to Areth because of anybody getting dropped off here? Looking through here, Canyon SRAM, Krista's off the back here. Looking through for the rest, though, it doesn't look like Harris is still in amongst the pack here. So perhaps Harris is going to be the one that Canyon SRAM is looking for the overall win here, Dan.
Yeah, you can see Ella Harris is still in this race, but that's interesting because I know she's not a sprinter and Tanya is. So I think she's actually going to try and do it all. And it's amazing to see how she's using that invisibility, and it's actually playing out slightly different to how we see sprints done before with the invisibility. And if you use it at the right moment, I think you can launch your sprint a lot earlier, knowing that you can get that gap and have no one to kind of use your draft and to benefit from your draft. So I think, yeah, like I said, they can use it a lot earlier, potentially around 500 meters to go as opposed to around 200, which is perfect for the aero boost, using the invisibility to get that gap and hope that they can hold on to the line. But Tanya Erath is doing an amazing job so far, 3 out of 3, so let's see if she can hold on and do the same for the overall, which is where it really counts.
Interesting to see so far here, Danny, that the riders have not really taken advantage yet, it seems like, of the counterattack. Every time we've headed into the Green Park as well as Buckingham Palace Garden here, we haven't seen any of the counters that we were expecting perhaps to see. Very timid riding at this point. There's a lot on the line. Again, this is the Zwift Classics. If you're just tuning in, you wonder what is going on. One race, one day, one winner is what it's all about. We do have a sprint competition as well within this London International for the women's race here. Next week we'll have the men's race as well, so there's going to be a lot of Zwift Classics here over the next weeks. We make sure to be tuning in every week for them. Now we are looking at innovation here. One of the community teams, 4.3 watts per kilogram, coming out of Great Britain now. Mary Wilkinson here following things up here, and it looks like Race 3R with Watts now making her way to the front. So lots of community teams. We'll go over them in just a second here, but Team Vision, it looks like, has all 5 riders still in the front group. Show Air Turbo 3R have 4 riders in the front group. A lot of the other teams, Danny, have really fallen off though at this point, and that gives those teams a lot of advantage to work together to try and chase things down.
Yeah, it does. And going back to what you were saying about the non-counterattacks, I think what you're seeing in this race is you're seeing a high average power, which actually is making the riders less likely to be able to attack. You're seeing here again, you have got someone trying to go with over 400 watts, using that invisibility to get that gap, and this is probably the best attack we've seen throughout the race, and someone there trying to follow using one of the boosts to get across here.
Yeah, and it's actually Show Air here with Clevenger, it looks like, as well as Shayna Paulus now going with an aero power-up, and that was an invisibility power-up. Attack off the front, gets the gap. Shayna Paulus then from Show Air follows that up here, and it comes across, attacks over the top of Clevenger. Clevenger's not even able to hold on, it looks like, as Shayna is just going forward here. She's got a solid 5 seconds, it looks like, over the top of the group here. Will Clevenger be able to close it down? This is the perfect time to do so. The only point on course at which there is a climb. We just saw another invisibility power up with Hubach here, and we said that Elise Hubach, she was going to be one to watch out for. The Danish rider here, the national champion of Zwift, she might be able to walk away with this. With these three riders get off the front, and it might all be said and done. Now Vicky Whitelaw is starting to go as well here. Innovation here on the attack, knowing that Show Air 2020 have shown up to try and race here today. Innovation trying to get off the front with them. It's being covered pretty quickly here. But Danny, will this power-up situation with the invisibilities and the burrito, this has really changed things up. We've got a lot more action happening than usual.
We have, and we spoke too soon. As we said, no counters were happening. The race is really on now, and you can see there's gaps everywhere, and this is where the riders have to dig so deep. It will calm down, but this is the point where if you're going to make it, you have to get onto that wheel straight away, because otherwise you're going to be having to put out even more power. So you're seeing the riders' heart rates are above 180 beats per minute here, so you have to dig in. It's all a bit of a mental game as well as a physical game at this point to make these small splits, and you can see the real competent and experienced riders at the front here. Vicky Whitelaw, she's been up there in all of the Zwift races so far. I personally raced with her back in 2009. Super experienced rider. And you can see that they have got a small gap here. So behind, the riders are going to have to work together to close this straight away, because this is dangerous.
there's definitely a gap now at this point, as you are seeing here. Bradbury along with Huback, Wilkinson now all involved. This is some of the strongest community riders that we've ever seen out on Zwift. Starting to mix it up with ShoAir 2020 now as well. Things have come together a little bit here, but there is a pack that is on the chase that does contain Tanya Arath as well, who has found herself off the back here from this lead group. It is out to 14 seconds now between the lead group and the chase here at this point. We're currently looking at, looks like 15 riders. I believe it is 15 riders. Actually, I believe it's 15 riders. I have to wait and see here, because I'm starting to get a couple of metrics here that are coming in for me. But Shayna Paulus, along with Clevenger, launched an attack with that Aero power-up and that Invisibility power-up. It was followed up very quickly by the Innovation riders there with Whitelaw as well as Huback. Then the Vision rider Ellen Tarquino, as well as some of the Turbo riders there, some of the ones that competed in the UK National Championship, got right on top of that as well. Gardner from Rowan King has made it. Jennifer Beal from Innovation is in there as well. So a lot of these teams just waiting for this moment, pounced on it, took advantage of it here. Will they just roll through is the question here, because another sprint competition we do have on board here, but these riders, I don't think many of them actually have anything on the line for the sprint competition. Jarhead from Vixen is in here, but I'm not seeing her go much of anywhere. We do see an Invisibility power-up now. It looks like coming, I believe it's from Huback here from Innovation. Nobody really kicking. It looks like Lubke perhaps going to take this down from nowhere. Bradbury maybe just with a little bit of a kick, but not a lot of interest, because I think what they're actually interested in is making sure they get the win on the day with a 15-20 second gap here, Danny. This is a serious threat.
Yeah, this is amazing to see, and I hope they do work together to keep this small group away. And as you said, Tanya Erath has really lost out here, and that is the price you pay for going for the sprint. So if that's not your game plan, you have to really wait, because now kind of halfway through the race, this gap has really opened up. These riders can now work together to make sure it comes to the line. So we're seeing a lot of different things happening now with the aero boost, with the invisibility boost, and it's really interesting to say, I think, if you can see riders using the boost and not really moving, that says to me they're struggling. They're using anything they can to stick in this group now, where the majority of the riders are riding between 3 and 4 watts per kilo, which is huge, and their heart rates are super high. They've already been racing for about half an hour, so this is where the race is decided.
Yeah, we can see it's out already to 20 plus seconds here, and we are seeing a couple of power-ups used immediately after the sprint. There was a drafting power-up just a moment ago, that little white van over the top of the heads of the riders here. We want to make sure everybody does understand every single one of the power-ups. So let's take a quick look at what the drafting power-up is all about as we head past Buckingham Palace.
The draft boost works only when you are drafting, when it doubles the effect for 30 seconds, like sitting behind a white van. Best used on flats and descents, it can provide a short rest for racers to recover.
And that is the drafting power-up, and as we are seeing here, 249 watts right now. No drafting power-ups on screen right now, as I don't think the pace is too high to try and hang on any longer. 4 of 6 laps done. We've got about 15, a little over 15 kilometers to go, and with a solid gap now to the chase group, I'm not sure that this is going to be coming back together. Helen McCabe from Team Turbo here trying to bring things back in the chase group a little ways behind. We are looking at the front group though, with ShoAir 2020 here, as well as Angela Pitzer's in there as well, the U.S. National Champion here, Jarhead from Vixen. There's some serious firepower, Danny, in this front group. I don't think this is coming back.
No, I agree. And there's some big riders that have missed out. Rebecca Wysack, who we were talking about earlier, the crit champion of Australia in 2018, has missed this group, and I think this is it. The race is going to come down to one of these riders in this front group. I'm going to put it out there and say that it's not going to come back. I think we will not see any more breakaways. I think all of these riders now will save it for the final sprint, knowing that they will be guaranteed a top 15 place in this race. We can see Vicky Whitelaw coming to the front now, super experienced rider. You might see her trying to attack. I know she's definitely not a sprinter. She's a really strong climber, so that will be interesting to see. And I'm really happy to see Eiley Gardner has made this group our only rider to make it from the Rowan King team. So yeah, I'm super excited to see what's going to happen now in the last 15 kilometres of racing. That's less than 20 minutes of racing left. So these riders have really got to dig deep now on a flat course. And some people think flat courses are easier, but actually I find them harder. You have to hold that average power. Although there are no climbs, that means there's also no descents where you can recover. There's absolutely nowhere to hide here, so you don't ever see the power going below 150 to 200 watts at all.
We are seeing a quick little cover there coming from Ellen Tarquino there in the Vision kit. She did cover an attack there that did come through from the solo BRT rider that's in this front group, Kim Hurst. BRT, not one that's been involved in a lot of the community Pro-Am races so far, and they're letting themselves be known with the solo rider, Kim Hurst, up there, but it was covered very quickly by Ellen Tarquino. She actually was one of the finalists in the 2018 KISS Crit series that was in Long Beach as well. So a lot of these riders have been involved in a lot of the live finals. Really cool to see them out here now battling it out in these Pro-Am races here now. Angela Pitzer now making her way to the front there. The highest watts per kilogram currently held in the group here, doing a lot of the work, is going to be Velocity Vixen. That is going to be Marlene Ajarhid there, out of Sweden actually, I believe it is, with 4.5 watts per kilogram. So one of the workhorses for sure. Heading into this climb though here, Ellen Tarquino here, after she does cover that move from the BRT rider, comes up over the top as they come through the hall here now, and it's going to be 6.4 watts per kilogram. She has a 1 second gap. Now Vision here looks to be trying to make a move here with two of them at the front. Samara Shepard there, also from Vision, the Kiwi, making her way. Show Air now on the front. Rosamund Bradbury, though, UK national champion, now making her way to the front, and I'd be watching out for her. She's been very patient here, Danny, and I know she's a sprinter. She's got a lot of watts to work with here, and I think Bradbury is trying to set herself up to not get dropped and be in it for the win at the final sprint.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's how I would have played this race out, unlike Tanya, who was going for the sprint to save it all for the final, because again, you have to react to these attacks to get into this sort of group, and that spends a lot of energy. So I think now for the pure sprinters in this group, it's all about sustaining the power, staying in this group to be able to use their max power at the finish. And as we saw there, the slight drag in this course is the only way really you can get that gap, where you can use kind of power to weight to your advantage and try and get away if you know for sure you will not be competitive in the final sprint.
I'm getting some information about how competitive these riders might be in the final sprint. Bradbury, the UK national champion, average power is well under everyone else in this group. She's at a 3.6 watts per kilogram. Next lowest is 3.8. Bradbury is fresh. She's been sitting in on the wheels so far. That is the smart race. It's all about the least amount of work that you can do until that final kick to the line. We also have seen that Hubach here has been using a cloak power up very often so far, which means she does not have an arrow. Who is hoarding the arrow power-up? Who is holding on to that special helmet? Is it still the power-up for the win? Because that invisibility power-up, Danny, seems to be very advantageous going into these sprints. If you can get that jump and grab a solid 2 seconds, it could all be said and done if you're more of a lead-out sprinter or somebody who can have a long wind-up of a sprint rather than just that punch in the last 200 meters.
For sure, and I think it's exciting that it gives those sorts of riders a chance to win this race as well by using the invisibility power-up that we've been talking about, where they can launch their sprint earlier and hold a sustained high power for a longer amount of time. So they might not be able to produce those really high 900 watts, but they can sustain potentially 500-600 watts for a longer period of time, and if they've used that invisibility cloak at the right time, they've got that gap and no riders will be able to use the draft that's coming off them. So I think it'll be really exciting to see what the riders are going to use coming into the sprint finish.
Lubke here now, after she did take the points on the last lap, looks to be grabbing the points here across the line. Uncontested, really. That might be giving her the opportunity here to win the sprint point competition here, or at least tie with Tanya Arath. Now, I believe the rules will be the last one to win the points. Usually how that's worked, I'll have to get, that's not official, that's just off the cuff commentary here, but a lot of times the last one to win a sprint is going to be the one who is going to take it down. If she does end up with a third win across the line in the sprint competition here, she'll tie with Tanya, I believe, as she does have 10 points across the line. If they keep on just giving these points to Jen, she could end up being the winner of this competition here. And Aerith, with 50 seconds back now at this point, she is in no woman's land here at this point. Well, she is working along with Bennett here, it looks like, in the chase, a little ways back here on another feed, it looks like, and she is trying to bring it back still, not quite caught by the main chase group. So Aerith not one to give up, it looks like here, but with almost a minute out and a large pack up here with such heavy hitters, it's going to be very difficult to bring that back. Things have calmed down here, and it's starting to look at each other and hold hands, resting up for the next sprint or the next climb here.
Yeah, as you said, with Tanya Aerith still...
Go ahead, Danny.
Still working behind. I think you can never, ever stop working. It's really hard mentally when you've got a minute gap to close. But actually, you never know what could happen in a bike race. Potentially, these riders could be looking at each other coming into the finish, which could slow them down, reduce their power. And if that group behind keeps working, you never know, they could be caught. So although it is very mentally hard when you're about a minute behind, for me personally, I would never give up, because you never knew what would happen until that final finish line.
Yeah, I mean, now it is coming back down to about 45 seconds here at this point, so there is a possibility, you're right. And if the group ahead doesn't work together, if they start to just kind of look at each other, be competitive with each other, and not really make any attacks, but just start thinking about how can they conserve too much energy, there is a large chase group at this point behind it. It's containing some of the strongest women in the world at this point, and I mean, there are at least 15 to 20 of them trying to chase down this lead group here. But will they work together? Are they just looking to be first across the line? Harriet Dodd for Vision here, as well as Ella Harris, last year's Zwift Academy winner here, 5.0 watts per kilogram, has not given up as well. So it looks like Zwift Academy finally, the two Zwift Academy winners here are looking to work together and try and close this down for the Canyon SRAM team here. Pitzer here, 3.0 watts per kilogram. Hubach as well. Jennifer Reel from Innovation now, it looks like. Innovation with a lot of firepower in this group here. I'd be watching out for them for the win. That was the prediction that you had out there as well. And, Louise Hubach here, regardless of how much work that they've put on, I mean, there is a reality. Innovation has put a lot of work out there. Christy Tracy is in there as well still. Louise Hubach, we're looking at Vicky Whitelaw still in there for Innovation. So 3 of the riders from Innovation, still lots of firepower in there for them. Watch out for them. But Mary Wilkinson, second overall at the UK National Championships here. We're looking at now 165 beats per minute with 8.9 kilometers to go. About a lap and a half, Danny. And any call out specific? Still Louise Hubach, or maybe change it up? I mean, Bradbury seems to really be rested up at this point. Is she the favorite, showing that she's got that sprint in that UK National Championship just a couple months ago?
Yeah, I think I'm going to back the UK rider, being from the UK myself. It's really amazing to see her in this group. But as you said, Innovation Cycling have got the experience to hand, and the likes of Vicky Whitelaw and Louise Hubach can really tell their riders before this race where to use the power, how to race on Zwift, and you can see they've definitely got the numbers game and that kind of experience behind them. But it's really great to see a lot of mixture of riders in here, and not many that can use kind of teammates to their advantage. So it really will be down to who's got the form tonight. I know these races are now taken really super seriously. People would have prepared for this race, rested up beforehand, potentially gone for a small ride this morning to kind of loosen up the legs, and they would have fueled properly and gone into this race wanting to win this first ever Zwift Classic.
Yeah, and the Vision rider here out the front now, Ellen Tarquino, looking to hammer away. It looks like the Vision rider's not too interested in a sprint finish. They keep attacking on this uphill. A couple of more power-ups being used. We did see a feather just a moment ago, but I think there's a lot of hoarding of the aero power-up going on, conserving that for the final sprint to try and take down the win. Let's hear a little bit about what this aero power-up is all about.
The Aero Boost power-up, signified by a time trial helmet, improves rider aerodynamics for 15 seconds. Cutting drag by 25%, it's a favourite with racers because of the big speed boost. Racers often save this power-up for the final sprint.
and the Aero Power Up, 15 seconds of reduced drag on the avatar, really able to walk away with the sprints. But there's a reality here of some new power-ups that are in the game here and maybe be able to change things up. Now, I am being told from some of our race analysts in the back here to feed me some information, letting us know that the cloak does not work within 200 meters of the finish. So we're not just going to have a bunch of invisible riders coming to the line. People will pop back into, so if you want to use that cloak, it needs to be used from outside of that 200 meters from the finish. And so I'm actually being told that is not correct from another productions, and so our mad scientist maybe not completely correct on that. We'll have to wait and see as we're getting mixed messages on that. We'll see if people suddenly appear or do not appear here from 200 meters to the finish line. But Aero Power Up is still, I think, the favorite out there. We'll have to wait and see. I think, though, either way, I think an early cloak use is most likely what people are going to do, because I don't think, even if you were like 200 meters from the line, using the cloak's not going to matter because the speeds are so incredibly high. Danny, I think it's going to be more about using that cloak from maybe 1K out, 700 meters out, more of a wind-up sprint like we had said.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why I think it's great that you've got the invisibility power up, because it gives those sort of riders that can't hold really super high power for only 5 seconds for the last 200 meters, but they can launch their sprint early. I think you'll see invisibility cloaks and then loads of aero power ups being used. And as you said earlier, you're not seeing many power ups being used now because they've decided to hold on to whatever they want to use in the finish, and hoping that they don't have to use them to just hold on in this last 6 kilometers. So I think we will see a lot of invisible riders, followed by the rest of the aero power-ups being used.
Yeah, Shepard here. Now we're going to win the front here. We're into another sprint, and Lupke seems to just be giving it. No, it looks like Bradbury from Turbo looking to upset. Lupke's going to have to go. 9 watts per kilogram. She gets Bradbury almost. What was it for? Was it just to say, look, you're not going to take this down. I've got Aerith back, and just grabs that prize right out from under her. There's no more points to be won, and Lupke gets caught out. That's why you go all the way to the line, Danny, right? That's why you don't just kind of roll through. You go for the sprint if it's there.
You have to go all the way to the line. You see it time and time again on the road in Zwift. You think you've won, you let the pedals go, you don't go all the way, and someone just pips you to the post. And that is really devastating that that's happened, especially as she was going for that overall as well. So maybe she was having a kind of a practice round right before the final sprint to know exactly when she needs to go, but that was absolutely gutting there as Rosamund Bradbury just nipped her to the line.
And it was almost, I almost said, like, do they have some history? Do these riders, like, for some reason, like, Rosamund's, like, looking to grab these points quick, but she does get third overall. There's prizes on the line. She must have done the math as we look at the sprint points finals there. Tiny Aerith does take the win, so there was something on the line between her and Jen there. Did not realize that Rosamund Bradbury had the opportunity to still take third place, and she does end up on the podium in the sprints points competition. Jen Lupke still takes down second, though, with 13 overall. Fourth place does go to Marlene Jarhead, and then fifth place was Helen McKay. So solid job to Tanya Aerith. Even though getting dropped, able to still pull off the win there and grabs the prize there for first place. Now looking through some of the last lap here as we do head into the final 5K. Just going to take a quick look at some of the average powers here, and I think Rosamund Bradbury showing us what she's got for a kick there. Maybe the favorite to the line. She still has Mary Wilkinson also there from the Turbo Squad. We've got 1-2 from the UK National Championships in here. And we'll be watching out, though, for innovation, maybe for a late attack. I have a feeling that Vision or a few of these other riders who are not the best sprinters are going to maybe want to try and get away. I'm looking at some of the 15 seconds bests, and, some of these riders might not have that kick. They're going to try and block away, I think, on the climb or through one of these sections rather than looking for a sprint here, Danny.
Yeah, exactly. These are the riders' last chance to try something if they know they won't be competitive in the sprint. So like you say, I think they'll wait for that climb. The only real chance they've got to get a gap with the power to weight advantages for the pure climbers or the riders who don't necessarily want to leave it to that sprint. Eilidh Gardner might be one of those from Rowan King. Vicky Whitelaw potentially another one. But this will be their last chance, which is coming up shortly before the final sprint, the final showdown. Who will take the first victory of the first Zwift Classic race for the women this evening?
15 riders in here now, as we are seeing, and it is Angela Pitzer, Christy Tracy, Eilidh Gardner there, Jen Lubke for Show Air 2020, Jennifer Beal for Team Fearless, Louise Huback for Innovation, Samara Shepard's out there for Team Vision, Jana Paulus, Vicky Whitelaw, Ellen Tarquino, Roseman Bradbury still in here, as well as we are seeing Kim Hurst for the BRT team. Erica Clevenger also out there for Show Air 2020 and Shana Paulus. So it's going to be 15 riders, some of the fastest we've ever seen. It's very mixed up between the pro teams as well as the community teams. As we were saying, this is probably some of the highest end racing we've seen out on Zwift on an invite level and a verification level, because the reality is that these are the pro teams that have taken things extremely seriously amongst the Zwift racing so far and have been showing up and learning Zwift, getting it down, learning the skills, and now we are seeing a totally different situation than we saw in the first few KISS Super League races, where we saw a lot of the community teams catch the pro teams off guard who are not used to it. Now it's all mixed up together here, as we're seeing the Show Air 2020 still involved here and racing hard amongst these community teams as they've put in the work. And I was told by their team manager, Nicola, that these riders in the chat yesterday were taking it extremely seriously. Like, it was back and forth all day long about how they were going to play this out to try and take the win out here today on this London course.
And that's what I love about Zwift. You have to train for it. We as coaches put Zwift racing into our riders' programs because you have to know how to race Zwift. And as you said, the level of these races now are so high, so you have to take it seriously. And I love that there are tactics being thrown around before the race, so riders really have a game plan like they do on the road.
We are seeing an attack here for Vicky Whitelaw as they do come through Whitehall and on over toward the Strand here. We're going to have the 1 kilometer to go banner in just a moment. And Vicky Whitelaw from Innovation, one of the strongest riders we've ever seen out on Zwift. 5.7 watts per kilogram coming from her now, and Ellen Tarquino now 5.4 watts per kilogram, trying to close that back down. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a counterattack from Vision Cycling, though, because I do not believe they're looking for a sprint here, unless Samara Shepard perhaps has something saved up. And we've seen Ellen Tarquino be the instigator, bring things back, be that ruler that's going to work for the team, I believe, and I think that has been the plan so far from what we've seen from the tactics. We do see one rider off the back just a little bit that's unable to hang on at this point. Is going to be Jen Lubke, it looks like, just trying to hang on. Angela Pitzer from Draft trying to claw her way back. The BRT rider was looking to make something happen, it looks like, but no, off the back now, as Hurst is not going to be able to hang on. We do have a couple of predictions coming from chat that it's going to be all about this 1 kilometer to go banner or that invisibility power up. We'll have to wait and see here if somebody doesn't try to get away with that, but Huback still off the front, 7 watts per kilogram right now. Shepard trying to close it down here. This might end up being a breakaway situation. There's not a lot of riders, a lot of firepower left, I think, after all of the attacks. Vision trying to close it down. Is it going to stick, Danny? What's your prediction? How's this going to play out? We're in the final 700 meters.
This is amazing to see, something we don't see very often, a rider off the front at this late stage, but I'm still going to put it down to a sprint. I think she will be caught. You'll see the power and speed really increase as these riders get into her kind of drag. So here comes the final sprint down the mall for the victory of the first London Classic.
We do see Mary Wilkinson now countering Huback here. Huback's not going to be able to hold on to it, but Wilkinson goes from like 500 meters out. Wilkinson kicked it into 10 watts per kilogram, grabbed a solid 5-second gap, and Mary Wilkinson looking for the payback in London, because in real life she was not able to hold on to it. Huback trying to come across with an arrow power up, but not going to be able to do it. It looks like Wilkinson at the line, Huback for second. It looks like Gardner, I believe, for Rowan King, just able to hang on. We'll have to wait for the official result there. I see Danny in my feed over here, hands in the air, screaming yes, yay, because her rider for Rowan King came across the line in third, I believe. Danny, what an amazing result there. Mary Wilkinson, Louise Hubach, Illy Gardner, first Zwift Classic Women's London International.
That was amazing, and yeah, I had my arms in the air, so excited. Very proud coach over here with Illy Gardner taking third for Rowan King. So that was amazing to commentate on. What an incredible race. So fast, furious, so exciting, and that's what I love about the Zwift racing, and what a pleasure it was to commentate on such a fantastic race tonight.
Yeah, that was absolutely awesome, and very amazing tactic there from Mary Wilkinson. And you know, we saw her tactics in the UK National Championship. She got a little bit nervous in that race this past spring, actually. And Mary Wilkinson now looking for a little bit of revenge, it looks like, up against her teammate Rosamund Bradbury. Maybe Bradbury, you know, should we say allowing? I don't know. Was there any love lost between them? I do have the DS actually from Team Turbo, I think, able to let me know what the plan was after the fact. We'll have to wait and see if he lets me know. But Wilkinson able to walk away with that. We're going to have the top 10 results here now. Let's go ahead and take a look at how things played out as the ladies race just finishing up here for the London International. Zwift Classics race number 1. Mary Wilkinson Turbo Squad wins it, followed up by Louise Hubach for Innovation. Illy Gardner there for Rowan King, 1.4 seconds back there. Rosamund Bradbury there for Turbo Squad. Does look like she opened the door up for her teammate William Wilkinson to take the win. Vicky Whitelaw from Innovation for 5th. It looks like Marlene Jarhead for Vixen there across the line for 6th. Erica Clevenger, Shower 2020, getting on the board for 7th. Ellen Tarquino, 8th place for Vision Cycling. And then it's going to be Angela Pitzer for Team Drafted 9th. Shayna Paulus, after a lot of attacks and very active during the race there, does take down 10th place. So amazing racing all around from the women. Let's head back on over to the London studio with Matt and Danny for some post-race chat.
Thanks very much, Nathan. Well, Danny, I'm out of breath. I mean, we were bouncing up and down. I mean, obviously, I've ridden a lot with Mary. She's not a pure sprinter. She had to use that kind of tactic. Hubach looked great. You obviously had a rider up there in the final as well. But do you think this slightly different format, these one-day races, impact that? Because we've never seen a race not finish in the bunch sprint on Zwift. But what an amazing start to this classic series. Great stuff. That
was incredible. I absolutely loved commentating on that race. Like you say, it was just so exciting from the start. You had attacks, you had counter-attacks, people going for the sprints, then getting dropped. There really was everything in that race. A last kind of ditch attempt for Vicky Whitelaw, who is not a pure sprinter, then a counter from Louise Hubach, and then amazingly timed finish for Mary Wilkinson. And then, yeah, my personal favourite and tip from the start, Illy Gardner for our team Rowan King to hold on for third place. But that was incredible. I mean, we've both seen a lot of Zwift racing over the last couple of years. Always excited, but this was a real thriller. Let's have a little look at what happened in the final kilometre, because this is where the racing really exploded. I mean, we didn't really expect Mary Wilkinson to do so well today. She's obviously a real seasoned campaigner, a veteran on the road as well. This is the last K. Just talk us through exactly what happened, because this was a really superb effort by Mary Wilkinson, but a great ride by Hubach as well. Yeah, it was. So you can see here, Louise Hubach really went with about a K to go, so she wasn't going to go for that final
numbers
sprint.
Are big, aren't they? Yeah.
It was massive amounts of watts, over 400 watts, and holding for a long time. And then you saw the pace really pick up from behind, other riders not wanting her to hold on for that victory up the mall, and then it was closed down right in the last metres there from Mary Wilkinson, who you see at this point is timing it to perfection. She's using Hubach for the draft and the chance to get around her. She had her as a carrot for the finish line. And then Illy Gardner had a great sprint there for third. And Louise Hubach, what a ride, going from so early on to then hold on for second.
Well, she almost came back in the final. She sort of got a second win. She's got the power up going on there. Interestingly, but interestingly, Mary didn't use a power up at all. But I think earlier on in the race, as we just look at the last few metres, there is the moment that Mary became the winner of the first race of the Classic Series. But Earlier on, we saw Tanya Erath from Canyon SRAM 3 times use the cloak of invisibility. What do you think of that? I mean, I absolutely loved it. She won the first 3 sprints, but paid for those efforts a bit later on.
Yeah, I did, and it really saw a new dynamic to the races with that new power up, being able to get a gap through the race and really hold on. You have to use it early and then hope that you get that gap. But unfortunately for Tanya in this race, I think it meant that she was, you know, going into the red really early in the race, and then when that split happened, she didn't quite have it. So you really have to go into these races using, you know, your tactics, potentially having one for the sprints and one for the overall. But yeah, didn't happen in the KISS Super League on this course, so potentially she thought that would happen again, and it didn't. So it was really great to see so much action in the race. It
was good. I love to see it. And the burrito in there as well. Of course, we've got a race coming up next week. But what we're going to have a look at again in a few moments' time is just a reminder that the Zwift Academy is open as well. You can register. Remember, there is a chance to become a professional cyclist. Kicks off on the 5th of August. So let's have a little look at the VT now. This is all about Zwift Academy 2019 into 2020.
Take us there, come on.
Well, I cannot wait to see how the Zwift Academy unfolds. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But of course, we've had race number 1. Next week is the turn of the men, and we're heading across the pond all the way to New York for 4 Healy laps of the perimeter of New York. 120 metres elevation each lap, similar distance today, around 40 k's. But how do you think the burrito and, of course, the cloak of invisibility, if I can get my words out, is going to be used next week in the men's race? Because there are so many different permutations on how this is going to be used. You can use it to attack and go clear, but you can use it to attack, you can use it and actually decide not to go clear. So many different ways. How do you think the men are going to use it?
I think it'll be really interesting, especially on a hilly course. I think you'll have riders using power-ups to simply stay with the front of the pack on the climbs, because if you get dropped on the climbs, that is normally race over. I think you'll see pure climbers in this race, unlike today where the sprinters would have been used. But again, I think it'll be super exciting. I think it will split to pieces and be a fast and exciting race. I do definitely echo that sentiment. Who would have thought that today's classic would have split up on a flat course? But remember, next week, if you want to catch up, we're on at 6 p.m. That is British summertime, so an hour earlier because of a small event called the Tour de France. We don't want to clash with that. So next week it's the men's in New York. But Nathan, let's have a little look at what teams are participating in next week's men's race.
Yep. So we are talking about here, I believe, for the men's race next week, it's going to be super interesting. But the women's race that just took place here for the visibility power-up, we all kind of missed it in the commentary there for a moment, because the reality is the rider went totally invisible there. But Mary Wilkinson, I just caught it in one of the replays there, and she actually used an invisibility power-up with about 500 meters to go, maybe 600 meters to go. It was perfectly timed, and it actually was the perfect prediction there that we had about how this power-up could be used. We actually saw 2 of them being used there off the front, and Mary Wilkinson got that gap that she won with because nobody was able to see her getting away. We also saw that Hubach used an aero power-up, but I think it was just a moment too late, and Wilkinson was able to get enough of a gap over her. If Hubach would have used the aero power-up, maybe a couple of seconds later, she might have been able to close the gap down and take the win. But Mary Wilkinson, invisibility power-up, takes the win on a course that usually you would not see won by a solo breakaway, especially at that point of the race is where everyone's just waiting to pounce. Everybody at that point is sitting in that pack waiting for those orange numbers. But Mary Wilkinson disappears, gets a gap. Aero power-ups don't matter anymore. It's a perfect counter. This is what we've been talking about. We've been talking about gamification, being able to use tactics, use your resources correctly, the limited ones that you do have in order to try and get that win. We've been waiting for a counter to that aero power-up. Now we're seeing it in the game. Kudos to Zwift on that one, and kudos to Mary Wilkinson on using it just how it seems like it should be used to counter that aero power-up and win a sprint, break away from a ways out. She wound it up and got that win. Amazing job. Let's go back over to Matt and Danny to finish things up in this first Zwift Classics London International.
Well, Nathan, thanks very much indeed. I mean, Danny, what a great... We're going to wax lyrical all night about this. I think, as Nathan touched on, the gamification is going to be crucial, especially the use of this cloak of invisibility going forwards. But last thought on the opening round of the Zwift Classics before we go?
Fast, furious and exciting, and a pleasure to commentate on. Amazing race.
Well, I couldn't have put it better myself, but thanks very much indeed for watching us. Make sure you join us at a different time next week, 6 p.m, when the men tackle New York. See you then.